My fusion system, fusing 1,000 chickens at the start. Chapter 321, Rewards and Congratulations. Before I entered the maze, I used the magical beasts in it to fuse that dragon. Didn't you guys see it? Watson reached out and teased the black dragon on his shoulder. He turned his head in puzzlement. That's... Christina's mouth went dry, she did not know what to say. They had seen the black dragon outside, but they thought it was there to guard the 100th floor. Who would have thought that that monster was not from the maze? Instead, Watson had created it. Also, how did he fuse different magical beasts into a dragon? How did he do that? My honorable master, so you were the one who took all the magical beasts in the maze. No wonder I couldn't sense them anymore. It took me a lot of effort to cultivate so many magical beasts, but it's fine since you were the one who did that. Anyway, I belong to you now, and so you own my things too. What would you name that dragon, master? Well, it is a black dragon, so why don't we call it Charcoal? Watson said casually. The Death Omen Star Dragon opened its mouth and spat out a ball of black flames, clearly rejecting the name. Christina and the other adventurers were dumbfounded. He wanted to name such a powerful dragon Charcoal? Perhaps he would like to call it Dust Ball? Globe was stunned for a few seconds, then a look of pity appeared on her face. My honorable master, I have to say that it is a very good name. I can already foresee the future. A giant dragon named Charcoal is so powerful that its name is written in the history records. Watson nodded with satisfaction. Since you also agree with that, I shall call you Charcoal from now on. It seemed that he could come up with a good name occasionally. He did not notice the human-like expression of grief on the Death Omen Star Dragon. While Watson was naming the Death Omen Star Dragon, a massive magical teleportation array appeared on the maze's 100th floor, and humans were ejected out of it. D****M it, the trial is too difficult. I can't believe they've cloned me. How am I supposed to defeat him? I've gained quite a few insights during the trial. I was just a step away from advancing to gold tier. Why is there a voice telling me that the trial is over? Has someone cleared the trial? Is it the sword mistress? Those people were the other adventurers from the City of Steel who had followed Watson and Christina into the underground city in hopes of gaining some benefits. Their trial had ended the moment the World Transformation Mirror recognized Watson as its master. Then, they were teleported back from all over the world. Those people included Nightingale and Clyde. Young Master Watson, are you okay? We were teleported to the border after entering the trial. We were in your hometown, where we encountered terrifying magical beasts. Fortunately, your angels and subordinates were very powerful. Otherwise, we wouldn't have been able to come back. By the way, how did you transform your subordinates from humans into angels? Annie was the first one to rush toward Watson. When she saw Christina and the others standing beside Watson, she said, "Greetings, Lady Swordmistress." Then, she shut her mouth. Angels? Did they hear her wrongly? Watson had a group of angels working for him? Christina and the Holy Sword Adventurer team members were numb. If they had not seen what Watson had done on the Stairway Temple, they might have cried out in surprise. Since Watson could even kill the Sword Saint clone instantly, they were not so surprised that he could create angels. You also participated in the trial? It was a good thing that you were teleported to the border. Otherwise, I would not have been able to save you in time. You should tell me in advance next time, Nightingale. Don't make decisions like this without my permission, Watson said to Nightingale in a harsh tone. She had trailed after Annie toward Watson. He had planned to explore the dungeon with Annie and the others because he needed someone to cover him. However, after Antonio revealed his identity, there was no need for him to hide anymore. He had dragged the dungeon out and cleaned it himself. He did not expect Nightingale and the others to follow him because they were worried about him. Yes, Master Watson. Nightingale lowered her head in disappointment. Then, Annie interrupted him, Master Watson, Miss Nightingale was worried about your safety. If she hadn't been protecting us, I'm afraid she would have already defeated the magical beasts in the trial and gone to help you. Annie, you're not allowed to speak up for her. I know Nightingale is kind, but I want to ensure her safety. If anything happens to her, I'll regret it for the rest of my life. Watson's expression was still solemn, and his words made Annie stick out her tongue at him, though she dared not respond. Annie sensed that Watson's aura had grown after a short period of absence, and no one dared to challenge him. However, the Einherjar body's unique constitution was too strong, and the aura it emitted was incomprehensible to an ordinary person. Unlike Annie, Nightingale was unconcerned upon hearing Watson's words. Instead, she smiled brightly and said, So, that's the position I hold in your heart, young Master Watson. I will make sure to tell you before I do anything next time. I will not allow you to be worried about me. Miss Christina, could you please explain the current situation to us? While Watson was speaking, the new arrivals, led by 2 gold-tier elites, went up to Christina and asked, Did you guys pass the trial? Is that why we got transported out? If so, we'd like to congratulate you. Lady Sword Mistress, you are worthy of your title as the Sword Saint family's daughter. You've defeated yourself in such a short time. Your talent is truly admirable. I did not pass the trial. The person who passed. Christina looked at Watson. The Holy Sword Adventurer team members also turned their eyes toward Watson. Puzzled, the other adventurers also turned to look at Watson. That young man is Master Antonio's disciple. He was the first one to rush toward the ruins just now. Did he pass the trial? Christina had led 200 people into the ruins, but she had failed to clear the level. Instead, that young man had beaten her to it. Was that a reasonable deduction? Some people questioned it, while some did not believe it. However, when they saw the black dragon on Watson's shoulder, their expressions changed, and the doubt in their eyes disappeared. Even though it had shrunk by countless times, everyone still endured the fact that the black dragon was the creature that had been flying outside the maze. They thought it was there to guard the place. However, it was resting on Watson's shoulder, so the young man must have been the one to clear the trial. So it was Master Antonio's disciple who had cleared the level. Congratulations, young Master Watson. As expected, a great teacher contributes to a great disciple. I wonder what's the reward for clearing that level. May we have a look? One of the 2 gold-tier adventurers had asked about that. They were eager to pass the trial because they wanted the rewards. That was also why they were there to ask Christina if she had passed the trial. They immediately turned their attention to Watson when they learned that Christina was not the one who had cleared the level. My reward for clearing the trial is that. Watson pointed to Globe, who stood beside him. He got a girl for clearing the trial? Many people were perplexed by the lovely female who resembled Watson. What kind of reward was that? They would have gone to the Golden Quill Pavilion if they desired a lovely girl. The maids were not only considerate but also provided excellent services. They went to the maze to strengthen themselves. They thought they could increase their strength by leaps and bounds if they could clear the trial. Perhaps that girl was created by the maze, and she had unique skills that could aid one's cultivation. Globe walked forward from Watson's side just as everyone was perplexed. She raised her short white skirt and curtsied. Since everyone is confused, I shall respond to this. You might be unfamiliar with me due to my current appearance. What about now? As she spoke, Globe's body changed form with a swoosh. Instead of a human girl's body, it had transformed into an ice-cold mirror that was dozens of meters tall. A massive vortex gently rotated on the mirror. Chapter 322, A Display of Strength. Is that, the mirror from the bottom of the maze? It has transformed into a human? That means it has self-awareness. An adventurer exclaimed when he saw Globe. They did not see Globe's transformation, they thought the world transformation mirror would disappear after the trial ended. It seemed like it was not the case. So the reward for clearing the trial is the mirror that was in charge of the trial? Does that mean those of us who didn't clear the trial are no longer qualified to pass it in the future? One of the adventurers asked worriedly. He only realized the benefits of the trial after he entered the trial, where he had to defeat his clone. He did not doubt that his strength would increase by leaps and bounds if he had succeeded. If he could challenge 100 levels continuously, he would have little difficulty raising to the next level in a short time. That should not be the case. Even if the reward is that mirror, that Watson person should not have been able to take it away. Otherwise, the mirror would have vanished from the underground city when the Sword Saint cleared the level a few decades ago. I suppose the person who cleared the level would have the right to use that mirror, not to take it, someone consoled him. Everyone nodded in agreement. It was a reasonable guess. The Sword Saint's strength had improved decades ago, and he had become the strongest person in the kingdom. That was probably because he had received the right to use that mirror. However, once a new victor appeared, the right to use the world transformation mirror would be transferred to that person. They felt that it was very reasonable. I'm sorry, everyone. You've guessed wrongly. The original reward was only part of the experience that I had accumulated over hundreds of years. I had to dedicate myself to the person who cleared the level. This time, I made the change on my own initiative. The world transformation mirror emitted a grand heavenly sound. Then, it changed back to the appearance of a young girl. She walked toward Watson's side in a few strides and held his arm. As for why I made such a decision? It's all because I met my master, Watson. He has charmed me. Globe blushed like a young maiden, and everyone was dumbfounded. Watson coughed awkwardly. Everyone, please rest assured. Even though the world transformation mirror has acknowledged me as its master and I have eliminated all the magical beasts in the maze, I will not let everyone be without any ruins to explore in the future. The underground maze had become an empty shell. It no longer had the world transformation mirror, so there were no more trials in the labyrinth. Plus, all the magical beasts had disappeared. It was no longer possible to enter the lower level to kill magical beasts and obtain materials it dropped. Numerous adventurers were in danger of losing their jobs. The City of Steel had existed for hundreds of years and was known as the City of Adventurers. It was undoubtedly a heavy blow for them. Young Master Watson, I wonder if you have any way to solve that situation. It did not seem like Watson would leave the world transformation mirror behind. Under such circumstances, it was impossible to explore the maze unless he filled it with a large number of magical beasts. Was it possible to do such a thing? I will take the world transformation mirror with me. As compensation, I will leave a suitable gatekeeper here, a dragon named Charcoal. It is this dragon on my shoulder. Watson reached out and patted Charcoal. The dragon flapped its wings, flew from his shoulder, and gradually grew in size. It flew into the air and transformed into a giant dragon that was dozens of meters long. Its terrifying diamond tear aura mixed, and its dragon's might made the adventurers' faces paled. As a diamond tear dragon, the Death Omen Star Dragon, Charcoal's strength was perfect to be the gatekeeper. Furthermore, defeating a diamond tier dragon would give one a greater sense of achievement than the trials where one had to defeat oneself. One would also receive more rewards. As long as someone clears the maze, I will give them a set of platinum tier armor and weapons as a reward. Watson's words caused a massive uproar in the maze. It's not a problem to have that dragon as the gatekeeper, but what you said about using a few platinum tier armor and weapons as a reward, is that true? Well, a new gatekeeper solves the problem with the 100th floor trial. But what about the other magical beasts in the maze? We can't just come here and fight with that dragon every day, right? With our current strength, it's not even enough to fill the gaps between its teeth. Then, Watson revealed a mysterious smile on his face. Everyone, don't be so anxious. I'll make sure all of you are satisfied. He pulled his arm from Globe's embrace and said, "Globe, I'll have to trouble you to teleport me to Mount Creation." "Yes, my honorable master." Globe opened her arms, and a small vortex appeared in front of her. Soon, the vortex grew rapidly and turned into a gate with a radius of several meters, enveloping Watson. The adventurers looked at each other. They did not know what Watson had wanted to do. A few minutes later, Watson returned from the vortex, and he brought a group of angels with him. The leader had short blue hair that fluttered in the wind. The halo that symbolized the angel race above his head was shining brightly. "So this is the City of Steel's underground maze. After so many years, it is the first time I've left the border. But it doesn't look so impressive. It bears no resemblance to the land of the dead beneath the Mount Creation." The blue-haired man was lamenting when he was interrupted by a lovely man with long green hair who emerged from behind him and said, "Of course, Captain Allen. After all, young Master Watson was the one who constructed the land of the dead by fusing a huge number of ruins. I doubt any ruins in that world can surpass it. Before we discuss that, I'll have to trouble you to complete the mission that young Master Watson arranged for you." "Got it. I'm just commenting. Young Master Watson's mission is definitely the highest priority for me." The two people who spoke were the captains of Mount Creation's 1st and 2nd Legions, Allen and List. They had brought a large group of magical beasts out of the vortex. Those magical beasts were at least gold tier, and their bodies emitted terrifying auras. Those beasts also had items that were flashing with platinum tier light on their backs. Those were of platinum tier equipment. 1, 2, 3, 100, 200. 200 sets of platinum tier armor and weapons. Am I seeing things right? A gold tier adventurer looked at the weapons on the backs of the magical beasts. He counted with his fingers. The more he counted, the more surprised he got. He was a gold tier warrior, so he knew that those items that emit platinum tier light were genuine platinum tier items. And those magical beasts, there are at least tens of thousands of them. They're all gold tier. Where did young Master Watson capture so many high-quality magical beasts? The others also cried out in surprise. When Watson said he had a way to solve the underground maze problem, they thought he had exaggerated. Then, they understood that he was right. However, it was still difficult for them to believe it even when they saw the tens of thousands of gold-tier magical beasts. If those magical beasts were brought there to fill the maze, then they might not even be able to see the Death Omen Star Dragon. Then, Watson said, "Allen, List, where are the people I asked you to choose?" "Don't worry, young Master Watson. We've brought them here." Then, another 100 or so people walked out of the vortex. To be precise, there were more than 100 angels. Those angels were all in their teens. Their faces were young and tender, but they were wearing the Black Moon Knight's standard issue armor. "I am from the 1st Legion. Greetings, young Master Watson." "I am from the 2nd Legion. Greetings, young Master Watson." Watson nodded at the men in greeting. Then, he turned around and said, "These are my subordinates. They are also platinum tier angels. There are 100 floors in the underground maze. I have decided to set an angel on each floor so that they can be the lord of that particular floor. You can use any method against them to kill them once, and if you win, I will reward you with a set of gold tier weapons and armor, as well as a magical beast of the same level. Of course, I'll have them suppress any monsters on the same level as you so that you won't get stumped." It turned out that Watson did not mean for those magical beasts to be rewards, he wanted to fill the dungeon. Gold tier magical beasts and platinum tier armor, the reward was too tempting. Many adventurers had already begun to imagine the day they get to run through the dungeons in the future. They would be wearing platinum armor and stepping on ferocious magical beasts to gain the respect of the people. However, they were only thinking about it. After all, they would be facing a group of angels. They did not know how they felt about that, especially when they looked at the halos above their heads. They were astonished to hear that instead of Christina, Watson was the one who cleared the level. After all, Christina was a famous elite, and she had quite a strong team under her. Even though Watson was Antonio's disciple, he was only an unknown child. The only thing he was famous for was that he had managed to withstand Christina's sword head-on. They did not think he had the ability to clear the trial. However, they had changed their mind. Watson was more powerful than they had realized, and he definitely could do that. He had hundreds of platinum-tier items and angels as his guards. How powerful was he? They only knew of 10 platinum-tier items in the entire kingdom and the fact that the angels were from an ancient race. There were rumors in the kingdom about how the border was a poor place. They had thought so as well, but their stance had wavered. It seemed like the people at the border were wealthier than most families in the kingdom. Perhaps that was why Antonio had gone to the border as well. Maybe he had looked down on the families in the capital. Compared to Watson's strength, it seemed like most of the prominent families of the royal city were trash. Chapter 323, Tower of Babylon. Young Master Watson, are you sure that those angels will lower their strength to fight us on the same level? And we will get rewarded if we defeat them. An adventurer stared at the scene in front of him in a daze for a few seconds before he asked with a trembling voice. He was much more respectful toward Watson. He had addressed the young man as young master. That's right, they will lower it to match your level. For example, if you have a team of 3 silver tier and 1 gold tier member, then they will also have the same formation. Each person in your team will get a reward when you clear the level. Of course, I do need to stress that you need to think of ways to kill them, not only defeat them, Watson said. After all, those are young Master Watson's subordinates. For us to kill them is a little. The group of adventurers looked at the halos above the angles' heads and subconsciously swallowed their saliva. They were facing an angel race. Even if their opponent suppressed their strength, they might not be a match for them. The other party had a platinum tier aura. Those people must be highly respected in the entire kingdom. Was Watson willing to let them kill those angels? You don't have to worry about that, and you can ask why. As Watson spoke, a Black Moon Knight from the First Legion stepped forward. He drew the long sword at his waist and stabbed it into his neck under everyone's watchful eyes. Fresh blood splattered everywhere, and his corpse fell to the ground. That scene caused all the adventurers to turn pale with fright. Watson and the other Black Moon Knights were expressionless. The dead man got back up, wiped the blood off his sword, and sheathed it. There was not a hint of injury on his neck. It seemed like what had just happened was just an illusion. What's going on? Someone asked with widened eyes. As an angel, they have a special characteristic: they can't die. No matter what methods you use, you will not be able to truly kill them. That is why I want you to work hard to kill them. Strength can only progress rapidly between life and death. That is not only for my subordinates but also for all of you. Watson looked at everyone there. When Globe had chosen him as its master, he had that thought in his mind. He brought the Black Moon Knights from Mount Creation to serve as gatekeepers at the new tower. At the same time, he transported weapons and sold them in the City of Steel as well. There were currently 100,000 Black Moon Knights. Other than those recruited initially, the rest were transferred from the other 4 towns. Initially, those city defense armies only had bronze or silver tier soldiers. Even though they had advanced to platinum tier, their combat experience had not increased. It was an excellent opportunity to increase the Black Moon Knight's strength and promote Mount Creation's name. When more challengers entered the underground maze and the Black Moon Knights had gained fame, Watson would be able to take the opportunity to sell the magical beasts and weapons that Mount Creation had accumulated for a long time. He would be able to make a huge profit. Initially, he had gone to the City of Steel because he wanted to pass the level in a low-key manner. However, since his identity had been exposed, he could no longer hide it. He might as well be straightforward about it. He could use Mount Creation's power to infiltrate the City of Steel, turning it into an outpost to collect information from the kingdom and protect the borders. Do you have any questions? Watson asked the adventurers. No, no more, Everyone replied hesitantly. Very good. From now on, the maze will produce a series of changes, and I hope that you can keep the source of those changes a secret for the time being. Later, I need you to sign a contract to guarantee that you won't tell anyone about what you saw today. Watson waved his hand, and Alan immediately walked forward with a stack of papers in his hands. He handed them to all the adventurers there. It seemed that he had already anticipated that scene when he was at Mount Creation. All the adventurers were a little hesitant when they read the contract. Only Christina did not hesitate to sign her name on the contract. I'm willing to help you keep your secret. We are the first people to know about the changes in the underground maze. In other words, we already knew the information before the other adventurers, which gives us an advantage. As adventurers, we should all know the importance of information. Why would anyone be stupid enough to tell others about the information they have? It seemed to be intentional, though Christina had said it in a self-deprecating manner. Her words served as a reminder to all the adventurers there. Watson had modified the buried city and then told them the secret to defeating the gatekeepers. Those were valuable information. If they did not sign the confidentiality agreement, would they still leak it? Would they watch others beat them to the labyrinth? The adventurers no longer hesitated, they quickly signed their names on the contract. Since everyone has signed the contract, please go home. The labyrinth will officially open tomorrow. I still need a day to optimize the structure. Oh, right, there's one more thing. The current labyrinth has been pulled from the underground. For the convenience of the trial, I don't plan to put it back into the ground, so calling it the dungeon is a little inappropriate. Can everyone think of a new name for that place? We can't think of a new name for the time being. Since you changed the structure, then why don't you come up with a name for it, young Master Watson? In that case, I won't stand on ceremony. Watson cleared his throat and revealed a satisfied expression. In fact, he had already thought of a name in advance, but before he could speak, Christina suddenly said, "What about the Tower of Babylon?" Babylon means sky. In other words, that ruin is the Tower of Babylon. If you want to stand at the peak, you must first clear all the obstacles. That's roughly what it means. Tower of Babylon? That name is not bad at all. It is as expected of Lady Swordmistress. Everyone nodded in agreement. Phew. Everyone who knew Watson's naming tactics, including Globe, was relieved. Watson, on the other hand, looked upset. What is the Tower of Babel? Even if that name is not as good as I had hoped, it is still serviceable. Let's give it a rudimentary name. Watson did not know that the Tower of Babylon would become a landmark in the City of Steel in the future, shocking the entire country for the next tens of thousands of years. Watson decided to renovate the tower, so Christina and other adventurers said goodbye to him and left. When those adventurers left, their eyes were burning with flames. After they made up their minds, they went home to prepare themselves. They would enter the tower the moment it opened the next day. They would become the first batch of pioneers. They would improve themselves and earn rich rewards in the battle against the angels. Only Watson, the Black Moon Knights, Annie, and their company remained in the Tower of Babel. The plan to modify the Tower of Babel is very simple. First, I need to change the original 100 floors of the dungeon to the first floor. The Tower of Babel was different from the dungeon. The higher one went, the harder it would be. At the same time, I need to change it to a channel that can go straight up. Watson strolled into the Tower of Babel, occasionally raising his palm to fuse the moving stairs in front of him, turning them into spiral channels. While he was doing that, the Black Moon Knights transported the goods from the vortex channels to help the process go quicker. Nightingale and Annie did not participate in that. The four of them sat in the corner of the old maze 100th floor, which was made into the first floor in the Tower of Babel. They watched as the spiral-shaped stairs extended from their heads to the depths of the sky. No one knew how high it went. "Miss Nightingale, during our trial, the people from Mount Creation had saved us. You told them a lot about young Master Watson while he was in the City of Steel. Now, can you tell us about Mount Creation? Annie asked curiously. Even the heartless Arthur looked interested to know the answer. He was curious about how Watson had built the poorest border in the kingdom into such a powerful place, and he even had a group of angel subordinates. Do you want to hear it? Nightingale glanced at the three people in front of her and saw their heads were shaking like rattle drums. She cleared her throat, and a nostalgic look flashed in her eyes. The story begins when I first met Watson. At that time, Watson was not so powerful. He was from a baron's family, and they occupied a small land. The castle was about the same as a manor. At that time, Nightingale spoke with confidence. Her voice was gentle as she described the battle between Watson and the Mage Guild, the elimination of magical beasts and bandits, Antonio's recognition, and the unification of the entire border. She also omitted the fusion magic that Watson had mastered and the creation of the seventh magical element in the world. It turns out that young Master Watson is just like us. He used to be an ordinary person, but he has achieved what he has today with his own hard work. It's amazing. Although Nightingale's story was plain, the three of them could still hear the magnificence in it, especially Annie, whose eyes had brightened. Watson's rise was not like those wealthy children born with a gold spoon in their boot. Those people would have countless resources, so they could do anything. They were impressed by Watson's achievement because he did that by himself. No matter how hard an ordinary person works, it's impossible to be on the level as the Mount Creation or an angel, right? I think young Master Watson must be a genius who's very different from ordinary people. Arthur complained. Arthur, don't look at young Master Watson with your despicable thoughts. He must have worked 100 times harder than you to get that kind of achievement, Annie retorted. Then, she turned to Nightingale and said, Miss Nightingale, you seem to know a lot about young Master Watson. Do you like him? Annie held her breath and clenched her fists, looking a little nervous. She had long thought that Nightingale and Watson had a special relationship, and she felt nervous when Nightingale told them stories about Watson. Nightingale was stunned for a moment, and her eyes drifted toward the busy Watson. A beautiful smile bloomed on her face. Yes, I love young Master Watson very much. Chapter 324, Antonio's Acceptance. Diamond Tier Special Building, the Tower of Babylon. Effect: the tower is divided into 100 levels, each level is a node guarded by the gatekeeper, who can receive many rewards and choose to enter the next node. Additional abilities: Space Warp. When entering the next node, you can choose not to enter a single level, but to jump multiple levels. The number of jumps depends on the challenger's strength. Information recording: the adventurer's information will be recorded, and the next time you enter, you can start from the level you have already passed, without having to challenge it from the beginning. Random God's Blessing: the Tower of Babel's walls are engraved with God's blessing, and each level you pass, you will get to receive a random God's blessing. Not bad. This is a great success. Watson clapped his hands in satisfaction as he looked at the new structure. At that moment, he was at the highest level of the Tower of Babel. He looked down and saw a wide and long spiral staircase. It was thousands of meters from top to the ground. A stone pillar of unknown height supported the entire staircase in the middle. That stone pillar had the absolute gravity that Watson cast. It was responsible for eliminating gravity so that it could float in the sky. At the same time, there were low walls on both sides of the stairs, with guardrails built on top. That was to prevent those who were not silver tier elites from accidentally falling during a reckless challenge. He had also added many kinds of blessings carved on the walls. As a young man in modern society, Watson had played many games in his previous life, so he also knew how to make a ruin look more attractive. The several functions of the Tower of Babel that he had fused include Space Warp, commonly known in the game as jumping levels, information recording, which was archiving, and Random God's Blessing, a buff. The first two functions would significantly reduce the progress of the adventurer's exploration, while the last function would increase the fun of the exploration. For example, if an adventurer was stuck on the first floor and could not clear the level, it might be because the god's blessing that he had was not powerful enough. If he challenged a few more times and obtained a more powerful god's blessing, he might be able to clear the level. That was the optimal solution that Watson had come up with after trying to shorten the time for each exploration and increase the number of times the adventurers would explore. I reckon that once that Tower of Babel is launched, it will cause a huge uproar among the adventurers. Watson placed his hands on his hips, the corners of his mouth rising as he muttered with some pride. He did not doubt the charm of his masterpiece. After all, the original underground maze was also created to give the adventurers a trial. However, it only focused on the difficulty. It did not consider the adventurers' experience that caused many adventurers to be afraid of danger even though they had the strength to do it. For hundreds of years, only the Sword Saint had managed to clear the level, so it might have something to do with that. Watson's Tower of Babel was different because the people guarding the tower were Black Moon Knights. He had already instructed those knights not to kill those adventurers and just hit them back. At the same time, the god's blessing carved on the wall was to protect the lives of those adventurers. It included low-tier blessings such as healing, strength, speed, and courage. There were also powerful blessings that he had obtained from the memories of the various powerful priests in the Ain-Herjar's body. For example, the Undying Bird's blessing could avoid a fatal injury for a short period. The sun's blessing also allowed one to increase one's luck by a large margin under the sunlight and increase his attributes by 3 times. With the enhancement of those blessings, the challengers would become more, making it more difficult for the Black Moon Knights, which would also help them grow their strength. According to Watson's calculation, each Black Moon Knight would guard the Tower of Babel for a month and then change to another batch. That way, it would take about 100 years in the outside world for all the knights to be rotated. The efficiency was too low. Therefore, he decided to upgrade the Tower of Babel after they had reached a specific total of challengers. For example, he would increase the number of gatekeepers at each level or increase levels. That way, he could reduce the training time for each Black Moon Knight. Besides those Black Moon Knights who were there to guard the Tower of Babel, the Black Moon Iron Knights on Mount Creation could not stay idle. After he built the Tower of Babel, he asked Nightingale to send the World Transformation Mirror to Mount Creation to help the people on Mount Creation cultivate it. In just a few years, Watson believed that the Black Moon Knights would be reborn. Master Antonio, aren't we here to see young Master Watson? You have tried repeatedly to pass the level to get the blessing from the wall. When can we see young Master Watson? Suddenly, a familiar voice came from under the spiral stairs. Watson looked down subconsciously and saw Denise accompanying Antonio as they walked up the stairs. Denise had placed her hands on her hip with a helpless expression while Antonio leaned on his walking stick. As they advanced, they fought against the Black Moon Knights that guarded each step. Naturally, the Black Moon Knights did not dare to attack Antonio with their full strength. Antonio was a Diamond Tier elite, so he managed to defeat those gatekeepers in a few moves. After defeating the enemy, Antonio did not advance. Instead, he took 2 steps backward and waited for the god's blessings on the wall to fall onto him, revealing a satisfied expression. Denise, don't rush me. I'll gather all the god's blessings on the wall right away. I've walked and gone through almost 100 steps and saw more than 1,000 kinds of blessings. When combined, some of those blessings will have a potent effect, and some of the effects are very ordinary. I'm planning to combine them into a set of the strongest blessings. Master Antonio, why are you so childish? Denise, you don't understand the joy of doing that. It's not following me, but you'll know when you walk up from the bottom. I need to speak to Watson privately, you can go down first. Antonio walked up the stairs, leaving Denise muttering in disbelief. I've been watching for a long time, and I don't feel anything. Will there be any changes if I try it? She hesitated, but she still walked down the stairs and prepared to try. "Greetings, Master." Watson bowed his head at Antonio. "Watson, you did well. I did not expect you to clear the ruin and even modified it. You even added God's blessings on the wall. It's really amazing. When I knew which blessing it was, I just had to clear the levels a few times." Antonio narrowed his eyes and stroked his non-existent beard. He said slowly, "Not to mention that one will receive a large number of rewards after clearing it. There's no doubt that this place will be filled with adventurers for some time." "Master, you're too wise." Watson praised him from the bottom of his heart. He could make such a change because he knew what the future held, and Antonio could see the wonders of that tower at a glance. It was just as he had expected of the kingdom's greatest mage. "Watson, you did not disappoint me. Let's not talk about that tower. Let's talk about you. What did you gain from that tower? I didn't teach you the god's blessings, that's a priest's skill." Antonio straightened his back, and a diamond tear aura spread from his body as he said that. That aura made Watson feel suffocated. At the same time, he also understood why his master was there, and it was to verify what he had gained in the underground maze. Watson's expression turned solemn when he understood his master's reasoning. Pieces of armor-shaped light appeared on his body, and the space behind him became distorted. Illusory, glowing arms wrapped around him as eyes appeared through the cracks. That vision stretched for more than 10 meters, and everything within that space became blurry. It was as if his body was covered with an invisible giant shell. The Einherjar's body was unleashing fully. "What a powerful aura! It seems like you've gained quite a lot from that trip to the buried city." "Come!" Antonio exclaimed before he waved at Watson. "Then I won't stand in ceremony with you, Master. Platinum tier God's blessing, activate. The God of Light's blessing, the God of Destruction's blessing, the God of Hunting's blessing, the God of Wind's blessing." Watson immediately added dozens of blessings to himself. Those blessings were formed from the memories of many priests in the Einherjar's body. Most of the priests who were there to challenge the underground maze were priests from the Holy Dragon Kingdom. However, there was no lack of elites from other countries. Those people believed in different gods. In addition, a god could have many kinds of authority, which resulted in Watson mastering dozens of God's blessings. After those blessings landed on his body, Watson's aura soared as if he had crossed the threshold of a diamond. The god's projections appeared behind him and filled his body with divine radiance. Before he could make a move, Antonio smiled. He cast a platinum tier earth elemental spell tentatively. Super black hole. As he cast the spell, a massive black hole appeared above Watson's head. The distorted black gravity tried to absorb him. Boom! However, as he faced the terrifying spell above his head, Watson only stretched his fist outward and punched toward the top of his head. That punch seemed to contain tens of thousands of battle techniques, transforming into tens of thousands of different forms of fists. It was dazzling. Antonio blinked his eyes, realizing that the illusions of the tens of thousands of fists had disappeared. Watson's punch was an ordinary one, but it shattered the black hole in the sky. Then, Watson took a step forward, and his body suddenly twisted in the air, turning into a giant dragon that was more than 10 meters long as he flew into the air. That dragon was the same as the Golden Flash, except it was a little smaller. However, its aura was stronger. Platinum tier Druid secret skill, Dragon Transformation. That was one of the Platinum tier secret skills that he had fused with the knowledge of archers in the Einherjar body. It could allow him to transform into a giant dragon completely. He could transform into two types of dragons, the Diamond Star Dragon and the Death Omen Star Dragon. Since he was more familiar with the Golden Flash, Watson chose to transform into the former. As he transformed, 8 fiery breaths shot out from his mouth, advancing layer by layer in midair as it pierced and landed in front of Antonio. That was the Diamond Star Dragon's ultimate move, the 8 layers of fiery breath. Absolute reflection. Antonio waved his staff, and the twisted ancient tree veins on the staff fell as it emitted a diamond-tear glow. At the same time, an angel halo hovered above his head, and an illusory mirror bounced the flames that Watson had shot out as a dragon and swallowed Watson with even more ferocious momentum. Chapter 325, The City of Steel's Transformation. Boom! Watson threw another punch. It was the same as before that. It was a diamond-tier fighting technique fused by countless warriors who were proficient in fist techniques. Its name was the Invincible Punch. He was invincible with one punch. With just a single punch, Watson extinguished the intense dragon breath that he had spat out when he transformed into a diamond-tier dragon. Then, he took a step forward and arrived in front of Antonio in a flash. He waved the third punch. Absolute time freeze. Antonio waved his staff again and released the second rule he had mastered after entering the diamond tier. The rule covered the Tower of Babel's entire top floor, stopping time instantly. Whether it was the wind blowing or the scattering dust, everything froze at that moment. The world turned black and white. Watson's fist stopped at the tip of Antonio's nose, unable to advance any further. Absolute explosion. Antonio did not show any mercy. Instead, he tapped Watson's fist gently with his staff. Watson's body instantly turned into an explosive object. A violent explosion erupted from every inch of his body, flames filled the entire hall. "It's over," Antonio said softly as he put down his staff. He could feel the massive amount of magic power from his body. "Yes, Master, it's over." Thousand-armed giant transformation, invincible punch. Watson released one of the two transformation skills that came with the Einherjar's body. The glowing arms that were originally intertwined behind his back suddenly stretched outward. Meridians and bones grew out from the inside, while solid flesh grew out from the outside. The muscular arms were like dragons. In just an instant, over 1,000 arms spread out from Watson's back. Each of those arms belonged to a warrior, but at that moment, they were all unleashing invincible fists at the same time. Over 1,000 invincible fists gathered together, forming a fist phantom that stretched out for hundreds of meters in front of Watson. Time, which had been stagnant, began to move forward again. The huge fist phantom in front of Watson shattered the time that had been frozen. The black and white world shattered like a mirror. The wind began to flow, and dust began to fall. Even the explosion on the surface of Watson's body was blown away by the violent wind of the fist. Flames were forced out of his body like long snakes, shooting out in all directions along the top floor of the tower. Watson's punch just happened to land on Antonio's body. Bang! With a muffled sound, the platinum-tier magic robe Antonio was wearing shattered into pieces, and he flew back more than 10 meters. His feet drew a deep ravine on the ground, and finally, he stabbed the staff in his hand into the ground. Only then did he stop at the edge of the Tower of Babel, which covered hundreds of meters. He did not fall. Even though he did not fall, it was no different. That was because Watson's punch had shattered the ground and the dome of the highest floor of the Tower of Babel. Antonio could only use magic to float in mid-air. After destroying the highest floor of the Tower of Babel, the huge shadow of the fist did not disappear. Instead, it shot straight into the clouds, striking a clear hole in the clouds in the distant sky in the shape of a huge fist. "Looks like I'll have to expend resources to repair the Tower of Babel later." Watson's face showed that he wanted to fight. He shook the thousands of arms on his back as he walked toward Antonio. At that moment, Antonio stopped him. "Wait a moment, Watson. I've already seen your results in the underground maze. You've done well. There's no need to continue fighting." "But Master, I haven't displayed my full strength yet." Watson scratched his head. "I've obtained Einherjar's body after clearing the dungeon. What I've just shown you is the ability of the Einherjar's body in the field of priests and archers, as well as his attainments in the field of fighters boxing. I haven't shown you the skills of swordsmanship and mages yet. Similarly, I've only used the 1,000-hand giant with the transformation ability of the Ainherjar's body, and I have yet to use the 100-eyed giant. The Ainherjar's body contained the knowledge of over 1,000,000 challengers over hundreds of years. Watson, who had fused all of that knowledge, was now at the top of his class no matter which class he was in, not to mention when he was fighting against his clone. He had also fused a large number of diamond tier rules, but he had not released those rules either. Understanding the details is an essential skill for an excellent teacher. Based on the strength you have shown so far, I have determined that your current strength is at the peak of the kingdom, and you are not far from the number 1 sword saint in the kingdom. After all, you have not entered the diamond tier yet, and when you enter the diamond tier, I believe that your strength will be on par with his. If we continue to fight, the Tower of Babel that you worked so hard to build might be destroyed. Forget it. Antonio did not mean what he said. He was right about Watson's strength. However, he did not dare to fight because he was afraid of losing to Watson, not because he was afraid of destroying that place. Even though he had blocked Watson's punch earlier with his extraordinary strength, his entire body was aching and his bones were about to fall apart. If he continued to fight, Watson would punch him twice more. It was inevitable that he would lose in embarrassment. There was a time when Watson could not follow up with all his skills. Now, he only needed 3 punches to finish him off. That was even after he had advanced to the diamond tier. That was the only time in his life that he had felt so powerless in front of someone else. That was when he faced the Sword Saint. One could say that Watson already had the aura of a Sword Saint. Antonio considered himself a genius as he reached the platinum tier when he was very young. However, there was still a difference between a genius and a monster. He could judge the future achievements of a genius, but monsters would always exceed his expectations. Originally, he had planned to let Watson experience the scenery of different cities and increase his strength during the following journey. He had even developed a complete training path for that. It seemed that he had to shorten that path. Because Watson's strength had improved too quickly, some trials were no longer necessary. Perhaps in a few years, Watson will be able to surpass the current Sword Saint and become the strongest person in the Holy Dragon Kingdom and even the entire world. At that time, the old man can rest assured and leave. Antonio muttered in his heart and coughed. He said to Watson, "Your current strength has already met my requirements. However, when you release your skills, the aura that you exude is too powerful. Even ordinary people would feel fear. Therefore, the next training is not to increase your strength, but to teach you how to control your own energy to prevent it from leaking and causing an impact on your life." With Watson's current strength, if he were to release his Ainherjar body, all the professionals within a radius of a few hundred meters would be so frightened that they would kneel down. A qualified expert would know how to restrain his aura. After all, the leaking of his aura was caused by not completely controlling his own energy. He was able to kill without making a sound, and he would not even let his opponent feel how powerful his attack was. He was an expert. One could see that Watson could not control his increased strength freely. One could also see how much he had gained. "Master, you are amazing. Not only did you see my strength at a glance, but you also recognized the problems that had appeared on my body. I am currently troubled by an overly powerful energy that cannot be controlled. It is really great to have you, Master, to teach me." Watson sincerely praised his master. Antonio appeared to be embarrassed as he waved his hand. "Brat, it's good that you know it. Since you have already cleared the underground city, we should leave. We can do that after you've repaired the Tower of Babel and pack up. Our next stop is very far away from the City of Steel. That place is called the Floating City of Stanley, a port close to the Royal City." As he spoke, Antonio felt emotional. When the Tower of Babel had just been established, he had also challenged it. Although he had not cleared the dungeon, he had gained a lot of insights. Plus, he had expected Watson to clear the dungeon. However, the number of insights he had gained still shocked him when he thought about that. In terms of strength and talent, Watson had already surpassed the current sword saint. I understand, Master. I'll repair the Tower of Babel now. It was an hour later when Watson finished repairing the Tower of Babel. He left the tower and went back to the City of Steel. It was already evening. Even though the city was also known as the City of Adventurers, it was the first time Watson had seen so many adventurers on the streets. He would meet a team after every few steps. Those adventurers could not enter the Tower of Babel, so they could only gather in the streets. Although the adventurer teams did not discuss anything deliberately, Watson's keen hearing still heard them. Have you heard? Master Antonio's disciple, a youth named Watson, cleared the dungeon before Lady Christina did. Because of that, the dungeon has changed. According to those who entered the 100th floor, the maze had evolved. The rewards for clearing the maze will be more abundant, and the difficulty is also increased. A group of bronze-tier adventurers was commenting on that. They were not strong enough, so they had not participated when Watson had pulled out the buried city. Hey, your news is outdated. Everyone knew that Lady Christina did not clear the dungeon or break her father's record. I also heard that she is giving up on her businesses here and will go back to the capital to further her studies at the Royal Academy. Really? That's great. The Holy Sword Adventurer team had always monopolized the City of Steel. As a result, small adventurer teams like ours had very few chances to explore the deeper levels. Now that she is leaving, the Holy Sword Adventurer team will no longer have such strong control. We also have a chance. I really want to enter the new dungeon to take a look. Oh, the dungeon has a new name. We should call it the Tower of Babel. Unfortunately, according to insiders, its evolution process will take a day. We can only go up tomorrow. The adventurers talked as they walked further away. Watson listened to the others talking about similar things, and a smile of regret and joy appeared on his face. Unfortunately, when the Tower of Babel causes a huge uproar in the City of Steel tomorrow, I'm afraid I would have already left. Chapter 326, The King's Spy. At the Holy Sword Adventurer team's office. Lady Sword Mistress, are you sure you want to leave the Holy Sword Adventurer team and return to the Royal City? Claude, who had bandages wrapped around his face, was kneeling on the ground with a reluctant expression. Many of the Holy Sword Adventurer team members stood behind him, and they all had the same expression. Yes, I have already packed my belongings. I will depart the city first thing tomorrow morning. You will be Holy Sword's captain, and it is a huge burden on your shoulders. You can't act foolishly like previously and tarnish the Holy Sword Adventurer team's reputation. Christina sat behind a desk with a package beside her. There were not many things in that package. There was only a bag of money and a few sets of clothes. The only thing that attracted attention was a broken sword, which was shining brightly. Even though it was broken, it still gave off an extraordinary aura. It was the sky-severing blade. As she spoke, Christina subconsciously turned her head. Her gaze fell on the sky-severing blade beside her, and her eyes were filled with complicated emotions. That was the second time that her platinum-tier weapon had been broken. The sky-severing blade, known as the kingdom's strongest offensive weapon, had always been her symbol. She thought that the sword would accompany her to achieve supreme glory, but she finally understood how shallow her thoughts were. A true elite would not rely on weapons. The fact that her sword had been broken twice was proof of that. After she explored the underground city, she understood something important. The strength of an expert does not lie in external objects, but in their body and soul. From now on, I will work hard to become a true expert. She did not plan to reforge that sword. Instead, she chose to keep it by her side to alert herself constantly. Lady Sword Mistress, according to the rumors, the underground maze has begun to evolve after they cleared it. The monster guarding the maze seems to be the Black Dragon, and some people even saw traces of an angel inside. Many people in the city believed that the legend originated from the ancient godly ruins. It had regained its vitality because someone had cleared it. Danger also means opportunity, but it is too bad that you are leaving, Lady Sword Mistress. What a pity. What would the Holy Sword Adventurer team do without you? Opportunity is different for everyone. That new maze is meaningless to me. As for the Holy Sword Adventurer team, I believe in your ability, Claude. I know you will never tarnish the team's reputation. Christina comforted Claude softly as she looked at the other members behind him. Some of them averted their eyes guiltily. They knew that Christina did not leave because she wanted to study at the Royal Academy. It was because they knew that Watson had created the new Tower of Babel. Those angels were not from the ruins, they were Watson's subordinates, and the black dragon guarding the maze was his pet. They could not tell anyone about it due to the confidentiality agreement. In fact, many rumors in the city were created by those who had signed the confidentiality agreement. To prevent information from being leaked, they had deliberately spread it to make everyone think the Tower of Babel was evil. One of the most widely spread versions said that the Tower of Babel was once the residence of the gods, but it had been sealed by a mysterious power, so it had been created as an underground city by the late king. With the passage of the Sword of Saint and Watson decades ago, the seal on the Tower of Babel had been lifted, and it had finally returned to its original appearance. The souls of the gods roamed in it, and they would choose the fated person to leave their inheritance. As long as one entered, they would receive the blessings of the gods. Perhaps it was out of her pride, or perhaps she felt the pressure from Watson. In short, those who had seen Watson's terrifying power could understand the decision that she had made at that moment. Lady Sword Mistress, if you insist on leaving the City of Steel for the Royal City, I will go with you. Claude suddenly stood. His face was bruised and swollen, but it was filled with determination. Claude, I hope that you will stay here. It is not just my personal request, but also my order as the leader. I am really happy to be in this adventurer team with everyone and have gotten along with everyone for so many years. I don't want this adventurer team to fall apart because of me. The only person who is qualified to be their leader is you, Claude. I know my request is very selfish, but I still hope that you can accept it. Christina was still trying to comfort Claude. Her sincere words made him bite his lips, and his eyes were wet with tears. Claude knew that he was not a good person, he was originally a thug in the city. Due to his lack of strength and bad character, he did not do well in the City of Steel, and very few adventurers were willing to hire him. Everything had changed with Christina's arrival. He still remembered the first time he met Christina. He was trying to trick a group of new adventurers into paying protection fees. At that time, Christina said to him, "Don't you think it's a pity to have such a talent but do such a shady job? Follow me. I'm going to build an adventurer team in this city to clear the dungeon that no one has cleared in decades. And now, I lack an assistant." It was Christina who had given him glory and status. Every time Claude saw the respectful gazes of the people around him, he felt the same way. Christina was her light, his goddess. For the sake of Christina, he would not care even if his hands were stained with blood and he fell into hell. However, now that Christina was going to leave, he did not know if he would have the chance to see her again in the future. The love buried deep in his heart would probably stay there forever. Lady Sword Mistress, there is another person who is qualified to be the captain other than me. That person is the captain of the guards, Blake. That demon Ned B. starred. After deceiving me, I don't know where he has run off to. Lady Sword Mistress is leaving, and yet he is not here. At the mention of Blake, Claude felt a faint pain on his face, and his tone became fierce. If Blake had given him all the information, he would not have been beaten so badly. No matter what kind of mood Blake had played him in, he would beat him up when he came back to vent his anger. "Claude, have you sent people to find Blake?" "Yes, he disappeared when you led our people into the underground maze city. I have sent people to the restaurants and taverns to look for him for a long time, but they haven't found him. Maybe he is hiding with his mistress, which is why we can't find him." Let's hope he dies in the belly of a woman as soon as possible. Christina only shook her head after hearing Claude's vicious curse. A hint of melancholy appeared on her face. If only it were as you said. In the city of Steel, in a place called the Clear Spring Shop. The Clear Spring Shop was a small shop in the city of Steel. The main business of the shop was the sale of medicinal herbs and potions. Since most of the people in the city of Steel were adventurers, and the owner had a brilliant way of making potions. As a result, that small shop had always been doing well. However, the door of the shop that was usually full of people was closed today. Sir, we have used a magic device to contact His Majesty for you. You can talk to him now. The owner with a handlebar mustache said that to the handsome man in golden armor in front of him. Then, he turned around, closed the black soundproof curtain, and left the room obediently. If Claude were there at that moment and saw the man standing in the middle of the room, he would definitely throw his fist and pounce on him without caring about his own safety. That person was none other than Blake. At that moment, Blake did not have the warm aura of a guard like when he was with Christina. Instead, his face was ice cold, and his eyes revealed the sharpness of a falcon. Blake, you are a pawn I placed with the Sword Saint family, but you have not contacted me for a long time. Is there any reason for you to contact me now? A crystal ball was placed on the table in front of Blake. At that moment, the crystal ball reflected a gorgeous palace. In it, a man in a long robe was enjoying a shoulder massage service from two beautiful maids with his back facing him. Your Majesty, I have something to report. I'm afraid that the sword mistress has uncovered my identity. Blake knelt in front of the crystal ball respectfully. His cold face was a little pale. I hope you won't blame me, Your Majesty. Oh? You were discovered. The voice of the man in the crystal ball paused. Blake had started to sweat. A youth named Watson suddenly appeared in the city of Steel. He withstood Lady Sword Mistress' sword attack in the Adventurers Association and remained unscathed. I thought that this type of matter was very common. After that, Lady Sword Mistress told me that that youth had at least platinum tier strength, and was stronger than her. At that time, I did not believe it, so I sent people to investigate. In the end, I discovered that the youth was from the border. I thought of your relationship with the border count, and I formulated a series of plans to target him. In the end, the plan included not letting Watson and the swordswoman clear the dungeon together, as well as deliberately concealing Watson's platinum tier strength, and letting Claude go and find trouble with the people around Watson. All of that was to test the waters with the youth. Then, he managed to obtain the information he wanted. Watson was Antonio's disciple. In the end? Continue. In the end, I found out that that youth was Antonio's disciple. He seemed to be inextricably linked to the border count. There was a long silence in the crystal ball. The man whose back had faced him turned around at that moment. His eyes stared at him through the crystal ball, bringing him heavy pressure. Even a crack appeared in the crystal ball. Antonio has been in seclusion in the Temple of the Stars for so many years. Royalties and ministers went to him to assist their children. He had refused them, and even I had wanted him to teach the princes. I wonder what Sylvan has given him for that benefit? Watson? That's not the first time I've heard of the name. I did not expect him to leave the border. I'm afraid he's here for me. This is great. I had thought that it would be inconvenient for my forces to infiltrate from the border from afar. Since he took the initiative to come to me, then I won't need to hold back. I might even be able to use this opportunity to catch a big fish. Halfway through his words, the man in the crystal ball suddenly changed the topic. Blake, there is only death when an intelligence officer's identity is exposed. Since you've brought me good information this time, I'll let you off this time. Come back to the royal city. I'll arrange another job for you. However, this is only a once-in-a-lifetime thing. If there's a next time, you should kill yourself. Yes, Your Majesty. I am extremely grateful for your mercy. Blake bowed his head respectfully and let out a slight sigh of relief. Even though there was no sound from the crystal ball for a long time, he still did not dare to raise his head. Chapter 327, Fiery Tower of Babel. My lord, are you leaving now? Aren't you going to have a meal with me before you leave? I've received a lot of care and attention from you over the years. I have a batch of gold-tier herbs, and I've made them into medicinal wine. It can help to increase one's strength. The pharmacy owner escorted Blake to the back door and urged him to stay. Maybe next time. Blake looked up into the sky and was ready to push the door open and leave. A hint of melancholy flashed in his eyes. Perhaps there would not be a next time. He had been in the City of Steel for a few years. He was a captain who adored Christina. He often had conflicts with Claude, who also liked Christina, but that was to help his disguise. His real identity was the kingdom's assassin. There were many other assassins like him. Most of them were placed with various dukes and noblemen. They did not know each other, and each only had a few subordinates and a set of methods to contact the king. The shop owner was his subordinate. He was responsible for gathering intelligence and passing it to him. After that, he would carry out the mission. Usually, an assassin would have 1 or 2 secret informants working for him, and people would only answer to him. If the identity of the assassin were exposed, the informants would also be eliminated. That was also the reason why the shop owner was so respectful toward him. Blake admired the king for coming up with such an idea. None of the assassins would recognize each other, so they would not be able to form cliques for personal gain. At the same time, if there were any problems, they would be eradicated. They would not leave any clues, and none could affect the work of other assassins. Of course, occasionally, a few assassins might work together. In that case, then the king would arrange for them to meet. He had met a female assassin named Adele. At that time, he was carrying out a mission to infiltrate a noble's territory. Initially, he planned to have passers-by pretend to be his parents and let the bandits kill his parents in front of that noble to arouse their sympathy. Then, he would sneak in as a refugee. However, before his plan could be carried out, the nobleman was dead. When he arrived at the scene, he discovered that the man had died in Adele's arms in the bedroom. There was a stack of documents that proved his collusion with other countries. A few maids had also died in the same bedroom. Their deaths were very tragic. Their stomachs had been cut open, and their intestines and blood were scattered all over the floor. The strange thing was that the eyes of those dead people were wide open, and there was a hint of a happy smile on their lips. That was the first time he had seen another assassin, and they had left a deep impression on him. He did not know if the name of the female assassin named Adele was real or even if her appearance was genuine. At that time, he had been assigned to the City of Steel. He was in charge of infiltrating the Holy Sword adventurer team to monitor Christina. He did not know if it was because he did not complete the mission first, which led to that punishment. The mission was boring. With Lady Swordmistress' strength, I'm afraid that she might not be able to clear the dungeon in 10 or 20 years. His Majesty sent me to monitor her to clarify their clan's movements. However, I feel like I might have to spend the rest of my life in the City of Steel. At first, he was somewhat dissatisfied with staying in that small city. After all, that place was not as prosperous as the royal city. The women were not as beautiful, and the alcohol was not as good. However, after a long time, he had gotten used to it. It was just like how he had fallen in love with that woman after playing the role of Christina's suitor for a few years. Unfortunately, all of that would end on that day. He had used the person he liked to obtain information. Presumably, Christina had already discovered it. With a deep sigh, Blake pushed the shop's backyard door open. Just as he was about to step out, he suddenly froze. A familiar face had appeared in front of him outside the door. Blake, I'm not in a good mood right now. You're the only person I can confide in the entire adventurer team. Do you want to go for a drink? As he looked at the familiar face in front of him and heard the familiar tone, Blake's face twitched a few times before he calmed and smiled. In that case, I'll do as you say, Lady Swordmistress. Are you leaving, young Master Watson? Annie's face was hesitant as she looked at Watson, who was gathering his belongings, inside the Golden Quill Pavilion. Yes, you know that my original intention was to go to the Royal Academy to study. I am merely traveling through the City of Steel, Watson explained as he tidied his clothes. Young Master Watson, can't you stay? Why don't you bring us with you? Clyde said. Even though he knew such a day would come eventually, he was also hesitant to part with them when he heard that. They had yet to conduct a proper excursion since forming an adventurer team with Watson and achieving Gold Tier. Plus, Watson had explored the underground maze by himself. Watson had clearly done so much for them, yet they had little to give him in return. That made them feel a little ashamed. You don't have to bring us along, young Master Watson. I can be your servant, but your subordinates are angels, so I'm not sure. Ouch. Arthur was the one who spoke. Leon smacked him on the head before he could complete his sentence. Great Master Watson, your humble servant, has just helped you administer a lesson to a disrespectful person, Leon said as he approached Watson and knelt respectfully with his arms wide open. As your servant, I don't expect you to always keep me by your side. As long as I see your face and hear your voice occasionally, I will be satisfied. Now, may I kiss your toes? Leon, you fraud, you are too disgusting. Arthur rubbed his head in embarrassment. Then, Annie said, even though Leon's actions are too exaggerated, he is right. And Arthur, you're too shameless. Young Master Watson has done so much for us, and you're still not satisfied. I know that you want to become young Master Watson's subordinate, not to serve him but to become an angel. With your behavior, if you become an angel, it would be a complete disgrace to that race. There's no need to go that far. I'm just telling the truth. Watson, who had already tidied his clothes, showed a helpless expression as he heard the two quarrel. Okay, everyone, please stop arguing. Not only are you reluctant to part with me, but I am also hesitant to leave you. After all, I have to go to school. It is not appropriate for me to bring too many people. While I am gone, why don't you challenge the Tower of Babel? I will grant you the ability to become Platinum Tier Angels if you complete the Tower of Babel challenge before I graduate. Really, young Master Watson? Don't lie to us. When they heard that, the four of them, including Leon, grew thrilled and moved in front of Watson. I am not looking to become an angel. But if I'm from a different race, I can better propagate the faith in young Master Watson's teachings. Leon elaborated. I mean it. The requirement is that you must clear the levels. If you can't do it, then what I said will be invalid. Don't worry, young Master Watson. We heard that the Royal Academy is a 4-year program. We've obtained a lot of knowledge from you. After we absorb it, it won't be difficult for us to clear the Tower of Babel in 4 years. The four of them began to study the Tower of Babel early in the morning as if they were on stimulants, striving to get a good result on the first day. Watson looked at them knowingly. He had confidence in them. After all, the knowledge he had imparted to them was enough for them to reach the peak of Platinum Tier. As long as they continued to fight the Black Moon Knights, they would be able to improve rapidly in a short period. The Royal Academy is a 4-year study. 4 years is not enough to return home. Thinking about it, it's quite a long time, Watson muttered to himself. At that moment, a familiar voice came from behind him. 4 years is a long time, but I will always be by your side. When Watson turned around, he discovered that Nightingale and Globe had appeared behind him. She ran forward to take his hand and said coquettishly, and then there is me, Honorable Master. The rest of the world will be there for you as well. Turning around, Watson found that Nightingale had appeared behind him at some point, and the world had also appeared. Globe rushed forward to hold his hand and said coquettishly, and me, Honorable Master. I will also be with you. Didn't you two go back to Mount Creation to train the Black Moon Knights? Why are you back so soon? Globe had cloned all of the Black Moon Knights. Since none of them could defect their clone in a short time, we decided to come back here, Nightingale explained. Globe shook Watson's arm and said, the clones I created can work without me around. Aren't I great? I've told your subordinates that whoever defeats me will get the chance to meet you through me. Now they're very energetic. Watson was speechless. The Black Moon Iron Knights might be full of energy, but he felt terrible. His head hurt when he thought how the Black Moon Knights would line up to meet him in the future. What's wrong with Annie and the other three? Why are they so happy? What happened when I returned to the mountain? After talking with Watson for a while, Nightingale realized that Annie and the other three were so happy that they almost jumped up and down. She was confused. Nothing. They just found their target. Watson said with a smile. Time passed quickly. The next morning, Watson, Antonio, Nightingale, and Anise put their luggage on the carriage. The heaven-devouring Rat King had been disguised as an ordinary horse to pull the carriage. Then, they left the city of Steel. Their second stop to the royal city was the floating city of Stanley, which was a famous and prosperous city in the kingdom. The carriage did not go fast because Watson wanted to see the Tower of Babel before he left. It was the first day of opening for the Tower of Babel. Hundreds of thousands of adventurers surrounded the new dungeon early in the morning. They had gathered in the street below, and everyone was looking upward eagerly. At a particular moment, the Tower of Babel let out a loud rumble. An illusory staircase fell and landed in front of everyone. Swoosh! Hundreds of thousands of people swarmed forward. Those who were at silver and gold tier used their combat aura wings to fly into the sky. At the same time, those bronze or iron tier elites hugged each other and climbed up the ladder. It had felt like a lollipop had been plopped into the ground vertically, and countless ants were climbing it. Many people were stepped on before they could enter the Tower of Babel. Some climbers had walked over other people's heads instead of the ladders. Don't squeeze, one at a time. Ayo, who stepped on me? I'm going to fall, help. Even if he fell, he would be fine because there were paddings all over the ground. The people who rushed up the Tower of Babel were not much better because there was only one gatekeeper at each level, leading to thousands of adventurers fighting for the first level. I came first. I should be the one to go first. Stop lying. Everyone rushed in like a swarm of bees. Who knows who came in first? If you want to count, I think you're still behind me. If you're not convinced, let's compete. Whoever wins gets to go. When Watson saw that, he pulled down the curtain and covered his face. Then, he said to Nightingale, who was driving the carriage, I didn't expect the Tower of Babel to be so popular. I only brought 100 Black Moon Knights. That is insufficient. Nightingale, please contact Alan later via Globe. Tell him not to battle his clone and to send the first legion of Black Moon Knights to assist those at the tower. Chapter 328, Arriving at the City of Stanley. Early in the morning, at the City of Steel entrance gate. It's so lively this morning. It is as expected of the evolved underground city. Oh, no, I should call it the Tower of Babel now. I wonder what kind of changes that ruin has undergone since it rose to the surface. If it's possible, I'd like to go in and take a look. Blake's body had a rich and mellow scent of someone who had just come out of the tavern. He asked the person in front of him, Lady Swordmistress, do you think so too? He and Christina had been drinking all night. The two of them had confessed many things to each other. However, when it came to core secrets, such as the origin of the Tower of Babel and who Blake was working for, they had a tacit understanding and did not mention anything about that. Christina nodded as she looked at the tower that rose into the clouds in the distance. If it were as before, I would want to go explore it as the team's captain, and you as the captain of my guards, and with everyone else. But neither you nor I can go back, right? Blake was silent. After a long while, he smiled bitterly. Don't say such sad words, Lady Swordmistress. It makes me want to cry. Can I trust your words? Speaking of which, I don't even know if you really think of me as your Lady Swordmistress. My feelings for you are genuine. There's no doubt about that. The time I spend with everyone is also very interesting. It's just that we always have some sort of unavoidable difficulties. Since you're sincere in saying that, I won't mind what you've done before. Next, I'm going to the Royal City to participate in the Royal Academy's entrance exam. Will we meet again? Lady Swordmistress, it's better if you don't see me again. Is that so? Then I wish you good luck in advance. Don't die. As she waved her hand at Blake, Christina tightened the luggage on her back. Finally, she took a glance at the bustling Tower of Babel before turning around and walking out of the city. As she knew the tower's structure, she could understand why it was so lively. In the future, that place would be even more vibrant. However, the liveliness belonged to other people and had nothing to do with her. Blake watched the graceful figure leave the city with a complicated expression. He did not leave until her back disappeared from his sight. That day was a day of departure for many people. Many people set off on their journey that day, and Watson was also on his journey at the moment. That is Stanley, the largest port in the Holy Dragon Kingdom. It looks really good. After a 7-day journey, Watson and the others finally arrived at the gate of their second stop, the city of Stanley. There was an endless lake in front of them. The lake's water was glistening, and it was shrouded in faint clouds. 4 bridges extended more than 10 kilometers over the lake, linking to a floating castle. That fortress was Stanley. It was located on Lake Priestley, the largest lake in the Holy Dragon Kingdom. Lake Priestley was connected to the sea, and one could see huge or crude ships sailing on the water everywhere. They gathered at the 4 gates in the north, south, east, and west of Stanley. As the largest port city in the kingdom, Stanley belongs to the Ptolemy family, one of the kingdom's 3 archdukes. As Watson poked his head out of the carriage and looked outside, Denise, who was also sitting in the carriage, continued to explain. That is the Ptolemy family's main source of income. The family is best at ship manufacturing and transportation. More than half of the ships in the kingdom are controlled by their family. The Ptolemy family, why does it sound so familiar? Watson thought for a moment before he suddenly remembered. Was that Gerant's family? Other than the Ptolemy family, which other family is there in the kingdom? Denise, please explain it to me. That city was not far from the royal city. They were about to arrive at the royal city, so Watson decided to learn more about it. In addition to the Ptolemy family, who are in charge of water transportation, there's also the Campbell family, who are responsible for researching and improving magical tools, and then, the Saint Laurent family, who specializes in training warriors. The heads of those 3 families are the only 3 archdukes in the kingdom. In addition to those 3 families, there are also the civil groups led by Prime Minister Makrotov and the general forces led by General Hone, who is famous for the kingdom's walls. In addition, there are only 6 primary forces in the kingdom. The 6 forces are mutually restraining each other and attempting to maintain a relative balance. I didn't expect that my father's family would be one of the 3 archdukes in the kingdom. Watson clicked his tongue. He knew that the Saint Laurent family was very powerful, but he did not expect them to be so influential. The other 2 families did not look weak either. They could even send their own men to the border. One could tell that they were extraordinary by that single point. Gerant said that I should look him up when I go to the royal city. I wonder if he's there now? Perhaps I'll meet his siblings. Watson was a little excited when he thought of that. He gestured for the carriage to stop at a sparsely populated corner. He slowly got off the carriage and cast a spell on the carriage in front of him. The carriage immediately turned into a medium-sized ship. The heaven-devouring Rat King, who was in charge of pulling the carriage, had also transformed into a magical beast with the body of a tortoise and a dragon-shaped head. That magical beast was called the water dragon. It was closely related to the earth dragon, which contained the dragon clan's bloodline. Its strength ranged from silver to gold tier. Watson and the others did not look too embarrassed or conspicuous with that magical beast pulling the ship. "Everyone, come on up." Everyone went onto the boat. Nightingale, who had been in charge of controlling the carriage, was free. The ship finally moved as the water dragon started to swim. Everyone sat on the boat and enjoyed the scenery on the lake. The moist air caressed their faces comfortably. In about half an hour, they were at Stanley's east gate with the surrounding ships. The gate was more like a huge sluice gate. A row of soldiers in sky blue armor stood on both sides of the gate. Those soldiers held long spears in their hands and emitted a silver-tier aura as they inspected the passing ships. After examining each ship, they would pull the levers on the left and right sides of the water lock to raise the gate and let the vessels move into the city. When it was Watson's turn, there were already hundreds of ships in front of them. "Please show your identification papers." The two city guards went to Watson's boat. They looked at the water dragon in front of the ship, turned their heads away, and stretched their hands outward. "We are merchants from the border. Here are our papers." Watson retrieved 2 documents from his bag and handed them to the soldiers in front of him. Those papers were what he had used for his forces at the border. No one would be able to find anything wrong with them. As expected, after seeing his papers, the 2 soldiers said, "Let them pass." Just as they were about to open the city gates, something changed. A heavy horn blared from behind Watson. Following that, a giant golden ship that was more than 10 meters tall sailed forward. A few men dressed in yellow stood on the deck. They had wave symbols on their chests. They were shouting in all directions. "The Ptolemy family's second young master has returned. Those who are idle should retreat. It's the Ptolemy family's prodigy. Why does he have to come at this time? Move aside, quickly. Don't let that ship touch you. It's not a joke. I heard that a few small ships did not have time to dodge it and were hit. We can't even find their bodies." Many of the boats behind Watson cried out in alarm as they slid to the sides, hearing the sounds emanating from the enormous ship behind them. Watson frowned. It sounded like the Ptolemy family's young master was not a good person. Even though he was not willing to tolerate such a person, it was better to avoid trouble. Watson ordered the heaven-devouring Rat King to increase the distance between the ships. "The young master is back? Quickly, open the city gate." The soldiers did not bother to check the passages of the ships around them. They began to shake the levers to raise the city gate. Then, they knelt on one knee and bowed their heads toward the ship about to enter the city gate. Everyone was watching that scene, including Watson. As the ship got closer, he saw a rocking chair on the bow. A skinny young man was leaning against the chair. Behind him stood 4 scantily dressed young girls who were fanning themselves with feather fans. As they fanned themselves, they asked, "Young Master Casey, is this okay?" "Not bad. It would be even better if you used a little more strength." Young Master Casey seemed to be in a good mood. He reached out and pinched the girl behind him, causing the girl to call out shyly. "The weather in Stanley is like my grandmother's temper. It changes so easily. One moment it's cloudy, and the next moment it's sunny. The weather has tanned my skin. Fortunately, the harvest this time it's quite good. I got a few high-quality goods. Otherwise, I would have to see my big brother's ugly face when I go home." Casey gently swayed in the rocking chair. His palm rubbed the girl's smooth thigh, and his eyes glanced around her figure. The Ptolemy family's second young master was only 16 years old that year, and he had an elder brother who was close to 30 years old. The main branch of the Ptolemy family had 3 young masters and a young miss, and one of them would be named head of the family. Since his younger sister, Lana, was only 14 years old and was a girl, the main competitors were him and his eldest brother. "If I can sell this batch of goods, I can earn at least 100,000 gold coins. This way, my profit this quarter will surpass his. I really want to see him blow his beard. Casey muttered inwardly. His gaze swept across the small boats, admiring the reverence that everyone showed him. That made him very happy. He enjoyed the feeling of power. As long as he had power, he could enjoy it unscrupulously. Many people in the city called him a playboy or the Ptolemy family's prodigal son because he had done many bad things over the years. However, he would never be punished. That was the benefit of power. While he indulged in self-satisfaction, his gaze suddenly stopped at a medium-sized boat. A water dragon was pulling that ship, and there were men, women, youths, and children on it. None of those attracted his gaze, except for the two beautiful women sitting in the middle of the ship. One of them was in tight clothes, and her short black hair fell on her shoulders, swaying in the breeze. The other was in a long robe. There were fine scales on her face that symbolized the flame elves, and her pupils were golden. The two women looked different, but they were both extremely beautiful. Furthermore, there was no fear in their eyes when they looked at him. Instead, there was a hint of disapproval that made Casey lick his lips involuntarily. "You're not afraid of me. You must be a merchant from another city. Interesting." He seemed to have thought of something, and a playful look appeared in his eyes. He waved his hand to the people below. "Men, stop the boat and invite those two beauties to come up here." Chapter 329, Cries for Help. "My dear beautiful ladies, our young master invites you to our ship. Please come with me." An elegant old man in a tuxedo spread his combat aura wings on his back and had flown easily from their ship to Watson and the others. He reached his hand out toward Nightingale and Denise. "Invite us. Who's your young master?" Nightingale and Denise frowned. The old man was dressed as a butler. He seemed to be a gold-tier warrior. He released some pressure in front of them unscrupulously as if he wanted to threaten them. However, the gold-tier pressure was nothing to them. They did not feel anything at all. However, they were disgusted with the other party. "Our young master is..." The old man seemed to be a little surprised. Why were those two women still unmoved in the presence of an elite like him? Just as he was about to explain, a young man with light yellow hair popped out of the large ship docked behind him. The young man was in a gorgeous blue robe. The cuffs of the robe and its hem were decorated with a pendant in the shape of a water droplet. With one look, one could tell that it was high-quality jade. "Hey, beauties! It looks like you've arrived in the floating city of Stanley from somewhere else. Let me introduce myself. My name is Casey Ptolemy. As the city's owner, I sincerely invite you to come onto my ship and taste some fine wine with me. At the same time, I will give you a proper introduction to the city. What do you think?" "Oh, no. Those two beauties have caught Casey's eye. The Ptolemy family's second young master likes to play with women. Furthermore, he has some special fetishes. Very few women could survive his boat. Even if they did, they would have still suffered some kind of physical injury. He has his family's backing, so no one dared to do anything to him. It seems that those two young ladies will also face the same fate. What a pity. Those two young ladies are gorgeous." They could hear faint discussions from the nearby ships. Everyone looked at Casey with a strange expression. That so-called young master is a B**** who likes to toy with girls. "Miss, our young master is sincere in his invitation. If you refuse, it means that you don't respect him, which means you are disrespecting the Ptolemy family. This is the floating city of Stanley. If you offend the Ptolemy family, it will be difficult for you to walk out of that gate. Are you sure you don't want to reconsider?" The old man's aura grew stronger, and his voice gradually became low. The sea shifted in time with the old man's words, creating tremendous waves several meters high that threatened to capsize Watson's boat at any minute. "Paul, don't be disrespectful to my guests." Casey had unknowingly walked down the stairs that hung from the big ship. The four girls behind him quickly caught up and laid a red carpet under Casey's feet, allowing him to step on the red carpet steadily. Then, they reached Watson's ship. "Everyone, I sincerely invite you to board my ship. There aren't many people that I can invite onto my ship in the entire city. You should feel proud. Have you seen the wine glass in my hand?" Casey shook the goblet in his hand. Scarlet wine swirled in it. "This is a high-tier 12-year-old wine from the kingdom's Raphael winery. There are also some delicious snacks on my ship. Looking at your travel-worn appearance, you must have been exhausted. You probably have not eaten for the entire morning either. Let me do my part as a host and bring you something good to eat. How about that? Especially since you have a child on board. I'm a kind-hearted person, and I don't like to see children suffering." Nightingale and Denise did not speak but secretly clenched their fists and looked at Watson. That noble young master in front of them was too reckless. He had dared to speak to Watson like that. If he knew Watson's true strength, he would probably be so scared that he would wet his pants. They were waiting for Watson's order, and as soon as he gave it, they would immediately push the annoying man into the water. "You are too kind. Sister Nightingale, Sister Denise, let's go to his ship." Watson turned around with a shy expression and smiled. "If that is what you wish, young Master Watson." Denise and Nightingale unclenched their fists. They chose to cooperate since they knew Watson only pretended to be young. He did not want to expose his real strength. After all, they were all platinum and diamond tier elites. Casey would be the unlucky one in such circumstances, no matter what he did. Casey's eyes fluttered when he saw Watson's cooperation. He stroked the young man's head. "He is such a good kid. Let's not waste time, then. Let's go." Casey turned around and stretched his hand outward. A young girl handed him a handkerchief and wiped his hands. Her eyes were filled with pity as she looked at Watson and the others. Watson narrowed his eyes when he saw Casey's actions. However, he pretended nothing had happened and brought the three people beside him onto the ship. Their own ship was stopped at the side. "Oh, no. Those foreigners don't know about Casey's reputation. They dared to go up to him. I hope that Casey will be merciful this time and let them go." After Casey left, the people on the surrounding ships shook their heads. The discussion had become louder, and their words were filled with an unbearable tone. On the ship. "Take the child and the man to a room in the middle of the ship, give him some fruits and snacks. As for those two ladies, give them a bath and change their clothes first, then bring them to my room later." After they were on the ship, Casey no longer maintained his pleasant expression. Instead, he appeared a little impatient. After he swept his eyes over Nightingale and Denise greedily, he licked his lips and returned to the cabin with a smile. "Ladies, please follow me." A young girl gestured to the young women. "Young Master Watson, wait for us. You can do whatever you want later. Just don't kill him. After all, he's a member of the Ptolemy family. A young master's death could cause too much sensation." Watson's face was beaming with a brilliant smile, but his words made people shudder. The Ptolemy family's second young master had dared to attack his family members, which offended him. It was already merciful of him not to kill him on the spot. As long as they did not kill him, he did not care about anything else. "Master, let's take a walk on the ship." He had said those words in a low voice, so the servants who took Nightingale and Denise could not hear him. Then, the old man appeared again. He said, "Let me take you around the ship. This ship is a magical ship produced by the Ptolemy family. It is gold tier. It has a magical protective shield and also 6 wings. Usually, those wings are hidden at the bottom of the ship. When there is a storm, the wings will extend outward and turn into bird-like wings, allowing the ship to fly freely in the air. Master, if we want to avoid the storm, don't you think it's not safe to grow wings and fly in the sky? Since there are still storms and lightning in the sky, we might as well draw a layer of diving magic on the hull to allow it to sail underwater." His Einherjar's body had a lot of knowledge, and it included information about shipbuilding. So, Watson had asked that after he heard the old man's explanation. "Watson, your idea is not bad. Letting the ship go underwater is something that no shipbuilding family has ever thought of. However, there is a problem. How do you ensure that the ship will not leak when it is submerged? Furthermore, there will be all kinds of aquatic monsters underwater. We can strengthen the hull, such as using steel and other things." Watson did not know how to use the information in the Einherjar's body, but he knew of something similar in his previous life, a submarine. "Hey, you two." The old man's mouth was dry as he explained to them. He had wanted to see Watson and Watson's surprised and amazed gazes, but he realized that they did not listen to him. He was a little angry. "Go ahead, we're listening," Watson replied casually. The old man cleared his throat. "This ship is a magical ship produced by the Ptolemy family. It is gold tier. It has a magical protective shield and also 6 wings. Master, you said that you brought me to the floating city for the next trial, but I don't feel like there's anything here that can increase my strength." "That's where you're wrong. You should know that the floating city can sit on the surface of the water without any source of magic power. Do you know why? Because the floating city has one of the best platinum tier tools in the kingdoms. It's called the sea god's trident. It was rumored to be from ancient times, and it has the power to control the sea, including its creatures. The next trial has something to do with that. I'll tell you the details when the time comes. Hey, you two. Are you listening to me?" Veins appeared on the old man's forehead. Watson kept saying that he wanted him to continue, but he was clearly not listening. "Sorry, I was distracted. Why don't you tell us again what happened to that ship? Are they still talking? F.A.T.C.A.T.S them." The old butler was so angry that his white beard fluttered in the wind. He turned around and left. "The two of you can continue to chat here. I'll go prepare some snacks for you." Even though he was polite, the old man had already thought of Watson and Antonio as 2 dead people. Young Master Casey would trample those 2 idiots soon, and they were still chatting leisurely about underwater ships. What a joke! After the young master had enjoyed those 2 girls, he would kill those 2 idiots and throw them into the lake. When the old man left, Watson's expression changed from innocence to calmness. He said, "Master, I heard a faint cry for help coming from the bottom of the ship. It seems that someone is being held there. Please keep an eye out for me. I'll go down and take a look." He boarded the ship because he did not want to expose his strength and because he heard someone screaming for help. However, the cry for help was too faint for him to hear clearly, even with his strength. To be safe, he decided to go there and take a look. Chapter 330, I'll give you a hand. "You go ahead. I can handle it here." Antonio chuckled and walked to the rocking chair that Casey had laid on the deck. He laid down and hummed a song comfortably. Watson nodded. He teleported and disappeared from the deck. When he appeared, he was at the cabin below the deck. As soon as he entered it, he choked on the smell of blood. It seemed to be an interrogation room. The room was filled with torture instruments such as shackles. Besides those instruments, he also saw a large iron bed that seemed to have some wet blood stains on it. Just as he was about to explore further, he heard a crew member from outside. As he pressed against the crack in the doorway, Watson saw 2 crew members in blue clothes carrying a large bucket passed by the room. "Every time we go out to sea, young Master Casey always arranges for me to be in the lower cabin. How many times has that been this week? Doing this kind of work every day, I can't even eat anymore. Be grateful. Even though the work in the lower cabin is revolting, there's also an advantage." The young master was too lazy to deal with the bodies of the girls that he had raped to death, so he left them to us. The valuable things on their bodies also fell into our pockets. It's not only that, but they also feed the mermaids flesh from those girls' bodies. They even saved money on groceries. I wonder if the mermaids can eat human flesh. The two crew members walked past Watson, and Watson's eyes widened subconsciously. He realized that the barrels in their arms were broken limbs. He thought of the bloodstains on the instruments of torture in the room. He felt nauseous. What is wrong with that young master? How can he have such a perverted hobby? If I had known earlier, I would have told Nightingale and Denise to be more careful. Watson felt murderous, but he did not leave. He was intrigued by those two crew members' words. They had imprisoned a mermaid in the lower cabin. He had only heard of such creatures in fairy tales. He did not expect that such creatures had existed in the world. He decided to take a look. After the two crew members left, Watson teleported to the position they had revealed. He instantly arrived at the deepest part of the cabin. He saw a locked iron door, but that did not stop him at all. He flicked the lock lightly, and the lock shattered. The door slowly opened, and then he saw a water tank that emitted a sky blue glow. A few beautiful mermaids were swimming in the water tank. They were quite different from what Watson had seen in the fairy tale books. The mermaids' upper bodies were human. Their sky blue hair was like seaweed, and shells covered their pale breasts. The bottom half of their body consisted of a fishtail, and their blue scales had a rainbow-colored glow. There were 4 mermaids. 3 of them were adults, and 1 of them was a youngling. She looked like she was only 12 or 13 years old. Other than the shell on her chest, she also wore a small crystal crown on her head. The other 3 mermaids surrounded her. She did not look ordinary. Gold tier sea folks, mermaids. Abilities: water elemental control, seductive dinging, can use beautiful singing to seduce the enemy, causing the enemy to fall into a state of confusion. Tide calling song, a gold tier spell that summons a water pillar to attack the enemy, causing large-scale damage. Foam, turns the body into foam, to a certain extent immune to physical damage. Fire resistance aura, resists fire elemental spells, immune to fire elemental magic. Additional ability, anthropomorphization, turns the fishtail into legs and can walk on land for a short period. When he saw the mermaids, the information appeared in Watson's eyes. He paid attention to the information because he realized that the mermaids were not magical creatures. They were part of the sea tribe. Watson searched the memories of the Ainherjar's body and found a wise man who specialized in studying those creatures. He obtained information about the sea tribe. The sea tribe was the collective name of all the humanoid creatures that lived underwater, and they were different from magical beasts. The sea tribe possessed a high level of intelligence and their own civilization. Their city was called Atlantis, and they believed in the sea god. The sea tribe warriors were born with a beautiful singing voice and affinity with the water element. Other than the sea tribe, there were many other races in that world. Other than the humans, elves, and angels that Watson already knew, there were at least hundreds of different races in the world. Some of those races were extinct, but some were still active in some corners of the world. After learning about the marine race, Watson slowly approached the enormous blue water tank in front of him. He was about to greet the mermaids, but before he could make a sound, the mermaids looked at him warily. The little mermaid backed off weakly while the 3 adult mermaids swam over and made a strange sound. Those words seemed to be the sea tribe's unique language, and Watson could not understand them at all. Fortunately, the Ainherjar's memories also contained experts who often roamed the sea and were proficient in the same language. Watson immediately understood what they were saying. The mermaids asked, "Who are you? What are you doing? Don't worry. I'm not a bad person. I heard a cry for help, and I'm here to save you." Watson used the same language to explain to them. The adult mermaids were a little surprised that Watson, a human, had mastered the sea tribe's language. However, they quickly reacted, and the leading mermaid sneered at him. "Don't try to deceive us. The hateful human who captured us had tried his best to get close to us. However, he doesn't speak our language, so we can only rely on our guesses. This time, he actually sent a human who mastered the language of the sea tribe. Do you think that we will compromise? To us, you humans are executioners covered in blood. Go back and tell your master that he has captured the Pearl of the Sea, the mother of the sea's youngest daughter, Princess Alice. Sooner or later, he will receive the punishment he deserves. You've misunderstood me. I have nothing to do with the owner of this ship. In fact, he had captured me. Watson raised his hands to show that he was not hostile as he approached the tank slowly. Stop, don't come any closer. Otherwise, don't blame us for not being polite. One of the adult mermaids was angered by Watson's actions. A sharp song came out of her mouth, and the entire water tank and the room shook. The ear-piercing sound was meant to lead people into the violent sea. The water in the water tank immediately boiled. A thick water arrow shot out from all directions toward Watson. That was the mermaid's song of summoning the tide. Faced with that gold tear spell, Watson put his hand down helplessly and blew in front of him. Platinum tear spell, absolute zero. Crack, crack, crack. The water arrow immediately froze in mid-air. Pure white ice spread along the water arrow and instantly arrived above the water tank. It formed a layer of ice on top and sealed the entire water tank inside. The surface became extremely cold, and it caused the mermaids to shiver uncontrollably. They stared at the water with their beautiful eyes. A platinum tear spell? You're a platinum tear mage. How could that hateful human invite such a powerful existence? The sea folks were beautiful creatures with a unique fish tail. Some of the noblemen had special fetishes about them. Therefore, the sea folk girls were often sold as slaves in the human community. Just like how humans loved the sea folks, the marine creatures also had a certain understanding of humans. They were very clear about the position of platinum tier elites in the human community. I've already said that I'm not on the same side as the people on this ship. Otherwise, with my strength, if I wanted to do anything to you, you would not be able to resist me. Perhaps you're deliberately using your powerful strength to lure us and force us to yield? If you continue to approach us, we'll protect Princess Alice with our lives. The three adult mermaids were still in disbelief. Just as they were about to attack Watson again, the youngest mermaid they had been protecting behind them suddenly swam forward. Everyone, don't be nervous. I sense that the human in front of us does not mean us harm. Princess Alice, why are you swimming forward? Get back. If that human casts another terrifying spell, we might not be able to protect you. That's right. We can't trust humans. Some of our compatriots believe their words easily. That's why they were captured and sold, becoming those detestable people's playthings. The mermaids spoke, one after another, but the little mermaid ignored them. She swam to the edge of the water tank and stuck her face to the transparent wall. Her big blue round eyes were filled with curiosity. My name is Alice. What's your name? You said you wanted to save us. What are you going to do? This water tank is special. It's engraved with a powerful imprisonment spell. Even if you're a platinum tier mage, you might not be able to let us out. That water tank was a peak gold tier magic item. It had a special defense, and it was no weaker than some platinum tier tools. With such a powerful defense, it prevented the mermaids from escaping. A platinum tier imprisonment spell. Watson looked calm. He walked to the water tank and gently knocked on it. Is it very hard? Crack. A deep pit appeared where he knocked on the water tank. Then, a few cracks spread along the pit and quickly extended to the entire water tank. The water tank cracked with a crisp sound, and the water flowed out rapidly. The mermaids swayed their tails in disbelief, riding on the water toward the ground. Did he really break that water tank? Princess Alice, hurry up and leave. We'll cover you. It was not easy for them to come out. After a short moment of shock, the mermaids reacted and rushed out with the little mermaid in their arms. In the end, Watson stopped them. What are you doing? Didn't you want to save us? As expected, you're in cahoots with the people on this ship. Letting us out is to make it easier for you to torture us. The leading mermaid immediately cast a hateful gaze at him. There are many elites on this ship. There are more than 10 gold tier warriors. All of you are very weak now. You won't be able to escape in your current state. I'd better help you out. As Watson spoke, he opened his right hand and released a series of divine blessings. The God of Strength's blessing. The God of Spring's blessing. The God of Wind's blessing. The God of Light's blessing. The mermaids were no longer weak. Instead, the scales on their tails began to glow with divine radiance, becoming even stronger than when they were at their peak.